These episodes are intended for mature audiences. Viewer and listener discretion advised.
I wanted to be
Wow.
Indiana Jones. I kept, I watch all the Indiana Jones movies, and I'm like, that's what archaeology is going to be like. That's going to be awesome, Matt. And so I come in as like, I'm Coach Vargas. And they're just like, oh, well, you're a meathead. You can't be a science person. Hey, man, there's a lot of STEM in plumbing, right? They don't think like that. They don't think like, they're thinking like you're a scientist in a lab coat. And that's not the way it's going to be anymore. And honestly, like there's still other things I want to do that are totally different than this that I'm working towards.
Yeah.
And I realize that, that's the beauty of life. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, welcome back everyone to another episode of Stories of a Dandelion. Today we have my teacher, Mr. Vargas. It's been a while. It is good to see your face and welcome to the podcast. You're the first teacher on the podcast, so congratulations.
Oh, well, I'm immensely honored, so I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. So first question that I ask everyone: if you're 18, graduating from high school this year, what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh. So, I thought about this. I pondered this for a while because, I'll go down a hole. I'm gonna go down a hole, but I'm gonna tell you, so when I had you many, many moons ago, the climate was so different. Like the kids of your generation, even the kids from like 5 years ago are just not even like the same at all. And it is a totally different environment. It is a totally different like space. A lot of the stories I told some of my former students up until about 5 years ago, their minds, they couldn't even like understand like what the kids I had your age in Belgium like were even capable of. I was like, oh yeah, these guys would jump on a train and roll to Germany for the weekend, and they would go, these kids would do like all these different things. And kids here like, what? Like, they just don't even, it's like mysterious to them or something. But I would say, one of the things that I think that, this generation is definitely lacking that you guys had quite a bit was that, those soft skills. I think back to like, some of the kids I had 20 years ago at Shape, and so many of those kids, they just had really great soft skills in retrospect. Like they knew how to talk to people. They knew how to make friends. I know a lot of that had to do with being military brats, right? Because like you got to jump every 3 years and make new friends all over again. Yeah. But it was more than that. It was way more than that. Like they understood what it, they understood it, like what it meant to like read a room. They understood what it meant to like, be aware of what was going on. Yeah. They're very empathetic, right? Like I still remember, one of my senior classes like protesting over something dumb, but they were behind it, and they were just like, let's go, and you don't really see that with this group anymore. A lot of the kids now, they're very much into their iPads, into their, they don't really think about, oh man, there's other people out there and I should worry about things other than myself. And I know I sound really old manish when I talk like that, and I know that, but at the same time, I do get to see a lot of kids that are, especially now I'm at Arizona State University now. So I do get to see a lot of like, new college kids, and, a lot of them don't have those skills. They don't have the ability to like hold down a conversation, really. Those soft skills kind of things. I feel like we're losing a lot of that, and it shows now. And so that's one of my big things I tell, future seniors. I was like, make sure you do some extracurriculars, man, make some friends, but, do some things so that you can, be in those conversations later, because, if you just go quietly into the corner on your phone, you'll be forgotten about. Don't do that. Like make sure you're in the mix,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that would be like my number one biggest thing I'd say is, don't forget your soft skills coming in. So
yeah, it's interesting to see. You're right, because I think society has like put up this whole new thing of like isolate yourself. You're gonna be okay. This is how you grow on your own. But in truth, like you can grow on your own. True, but you grow more with community and people around you. And technology is definitely hindering that. But I hope we learn a way that we can use technology to reverse that and make people see like, hey, having people around you is a good thing, and knowing how to talk to people and communicate with people is how you live life and enjoy it and have fun. So it sucks to see it going away. Yeah,
100%. I agree.
Yeah. So tell the people, Mr. Vargas, about your childhood, a little bit about your background, how you became a Dodge teacher, and where you are now.
Sure. So I'm native of Arizona, born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. My dad was a teacher. My grandparents were teachers. It was in the blood. One of the things that we grew up with also was coaching. Coaching was definitely in the blood. My dad was a basketball coach. Grandpa was a basketball coach. My uncles, all my cousins were basketball coaches. So I kind of grew up in that environment my entire life. And so, when I graduated college, I was in a situation where, I did 1 year here in Phoenix, and basically, to be a head coach in Arizona means someone has to die and put it in their will that you get to be like the junior, the JV coach. Like we have so many retired old athletes here, man. It's crazy. Like, I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar teaches up on the reservation here for years. Like the level of coaching here is like ridiculous, right? Wow. And I knew that, and I knew that I would have to like wait many years to be a varsity head coach. And so when I get this phone call from this guy named Kevin Brewer, who I'm sure he's probably gonna be watching this, says, "Hey, would you like to come out and come to this place called Shape, Belgium? We'd like to make you the head basketball coach." I was like, "Oh, heck yeah, let's go." I'm like, what is shape? Like get into shape? Like what is that? And he's like, "Well, it's Supreme Headquarters, Allied Powers Europe, and young man, you'd be crazy not to take this position." And I'm like, "Okay." And the story goes, Mr. Brewer tells me I'm going to be a little bit of everything, and he wasn't kidding. I taught 5 preps my first year, so I had like world history, 1 science, which is kind of funny. And I even taught like 8th grade Canadian science. I didn't even know that was a thing, but they're like, "By the way, we're also going to farm you out to the Canadians." So, but I was excited because I was going to be a head coach. It's like my dream come true. Right.
Yeah.
And I get there off the plane and he goes, "Oh, hey, I don't know if you remember Mr. Brewer or not, but he was like, "Hey, by the way, we don't have a head football coach, so I hope you don't mind, but you're going to be the head football coach. Don't worry, I brought you a whistle. Here you go. Good luck to you, son." And he takes me to the field from the airport. So he doesn't take me home. He takes me to the field, and my bags are sitting on the side, and I'm like meeting all these people for the first time, and I'm like, "I don't know anything about football, man. You hired me to be the basketball coach."
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, varsity. It's all the same thing. It's the same group of kids. You'll be fine. It'll be great." And the rest is history. And then I ended up coaching 3 sports for 10 years, and in different levels, but 3 sports over 10 years in Belgium, and it was awesome. So. Some of those guys I coached with back in the day, I'm still tight with, which is awesome. Really great memories. Great. I mean, it was a great group of kids. Like I went to the NJCAA tournament. I went to the state championship here in Arizona a couple of times. But but I never had groups of kids like I did in Belgium. I never had anyone better. I mean, I had some pretty awesome, pretty amazing athletes, which was pretty cool. So I coached in Belgium for 10 years. Actually 11 years, I think. I can't remember. It was a while. I came home for a year, met my wife, took her back to Belgium, and then we stayed another 3 years and then had our firstborn, my daughter, Lark. And then that's when we decided to move home because wanted to be close to family, wanted to make sure she knew who Grandma and Grandpa were. So we moved home when she was 1 year old. So, but yeah. No, man, those are some of the best memories ever. I'm still actually really good friends with most of the people in my village back in Belgium. So I'm still Uncle Mike, which makes me very happy. I've been out there a couple times, not as much as I'd like, but a couple times to go visit and say hello. It's a very different place now. It's not at all how I remember it. I went back 6 years ago. And they tore the main building down and they built a new school. Have you seen it? Have you seen the new school at all?
The year I graduated is when they tore the old building down in 2014. Okay. And then they built up the new one. And my mom was still in Belgium during that time. So the year after I graduated, or not even a year, like 3 months after I graduated, I came back and it was a whole new, it was already up when we graduated, but we just didn't expect them to already be in it by the time, the next school year came around. But yeah, I think 2015 and since then. So almost 10 years now that school's been.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I remember walking through and I was just like, I missed the green room. Do you remember the green room?
Yes, I did.
It was like this weird place where the Belgian kids and the American kids would hang out at lunch and stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. And, just the old school, the smell of the old wood varnish and I mean, it was ancient. I get it. But at the same time, there was something cool about it, And, the new school didn't have that, didn't have that old school feel. It was very, clean.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. When I went back, I was I feel bad for the middle schoolers because they don't get to bother the high schoolers that they know. We in school, everybody's separated, which I'm sure the high schoolers now are thank God. But I just remember being in middle school and seeing the people I knew in high school that were my big sisters and brothers and bothering them every day. Just a fun thing, and it's just so different. Yeah, it's really different. The community's different as well. I saw that when I went back in 2022. I believe we went back. It's a lot of differences on shape now.
Yeah, you've seen more than I have. I did get to see the building, but I haven't seen any of the. I heard they built a whole new apartment complex out the back gate and a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. Yeah.
It's really interesting to see the change that is happening within the school and everything.
It was a special place. It was very unique. It was for those of your guests that have no idea, shape was kind of like Casablanca in Belgium. It was all these people from other parts of the world, all commiserating that the Belgians, have 8 stamps for everything.
Yeah, definitely. It was special. It was something, you only get to experience once in a lifetime type of thing. It felt and all the countries we got to experience and enjoy in one place. It felt the whole world weirdly in one place, all the countries in one place, even though it wasn't, but it just kind of felt that way.
What? Let me ask you this: what is your fondest memory of Belgium? I'm curious.
Memory. Oh wow, that's kind of hard to narrow down because I was there from the time I was 5 to 18. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think it'd have to be in high school, my 10th grade year. Playing basketball with Paris and Kirsten and Teresa and all them, and that season was special. It wasn't special just because we won, but it was special just because it was this last time that we can all be together, because they were graduating and I was, just, going to my 11th grade year. And it just felt like a time where I could be with my sisters and just really enjoy them and have fun with them before they go off and officially be adults, and kind of like, me just be here and figure out what's next for me in high school. So that time I really cherish, because we had so much fun. Every road trip, every, place we went, wherever we ate, every bus ride, it was just that extra special of just being able to share it with them.
Oh, that was a fun group too. I remember that group. They were pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I remember you guys would sing all the time. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
It would be like, oh my God, you guys, can you stop singing, please? We're trying to come on, and then you guys would just keep going. And I remember at the time I was like, and now I'm just like, oh, that was so fun. That was a lot of fun. I remember those were good times.
The best times, yeah. What is your fondest memory?
Oh man, I mean, the bus trips were, I got to tell you, I've never been on bus trips like that, and the whole rest of my career. It's not like you're, oh, hey guys, we're gonna go down to South Phoenix, or maybe we'll go to California for the big tournament. It was like, all right, we're gonna drive 14 hours to Italy. We're going to take a bus ride for 10 hours to Stuttgart. I mean, those were crazy. I remember there was a point before they changed over to the Euro where I had to keep a wallet with I think 4 currencies in it at one point in time, because, we weren't on the Euro yet. That's how old I am. And I remember, okay, I need money for the bus stop in Luxembourg, money for, buy something in Belgium when we were almost home. And then I had to have money for Germany and Italy, and then there was, whatever else. And then you always had to take extra cash with you, because there was always that one kid that forgot their money at home, and you had to have something, Mr. Vargas, I'm starving. Can you please buy me, so yes, I got you, so.
That one child.
There's always that one kid, but, and it wasn't like, we had the normal kids too, because they'd be like, oh, well, can I get 2 sandwiches? Like, okay, all right, I got you.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you get into basketball in the first place? Did you play it as a kid, or were you just watching it?
Oh yeah, no, I played as a kid, and then I didn't play in college, so that was kind of like my, that was my big slight, because trying to get into any type of college basketball, coaching or anything like that, you have to have the pedigree, and even though I was really successful at the junior college and the high school level. It didn't matter, because they're like, well, you didn't play for Kentucky. You didn't play for, Arizona. You weren't even a graduate assistant. So it made it tough. It was very tough. And, so I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I've won everything. I mean, I think I had 4 or 5 rings under my belt at one point in time. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I've done it. What more do I need to prove? Over here, I had a couple buddies that I coached junior college with. They've been coaching for 15, 20 years,
wow,
and had never gotten a ring before, and wow, they were still hunting the ring. And I kind of came to the point where I was like, I don't want to be that guy. I got the trophies, I got the accolades, I did those things. Enough is enough. I'm ready for something else. Yeah. And I think that was when I really had a, call to Jesus moment, where I was like, okay, it's time to put the whistle down. It's time to move on to something else. And that's kind of what I did. So I realized that, being a science teacher, when I came home to Arizona, I was like, okay, well, Arizona science is bad here. Like our science system in our state is atrocious. It's pretty bad. And I ended up becoming an advocate. And one of the things that's kind of interesting is like, so let me backtrack. So imagine this, right? Imagine being in a place where everyone's a science person, right? And they kind of judge you, right, on where you're at. And so I come in as like, I'm Coach Vargas. And they're just like, oh, well, you're a meathead. You can't be a science person, right?
Yeah.
Right. Because they think like that. And then, and then coaching junior college, my junior college players would be like, well, what do you do? Are you like a social studies guy? Do you, work over here, a business? Because a lot of the guys are business people. And I was like, I teach applied physics. And they look at you like, what? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I teach it, and I teach at the junior college part time, and I'm over here at the high school, and my forte is physics. Yeah. And so then they would look at you like, oh, well, you're not a real coach. You're a science nerd, And so I lived for a long time in this world of like I wasn't one or the other, and it was really hard to like find my place because. The science people would look at you like, oh, you're a jock, you're an athlete person. And then the science people and it would go vice versa. And
did you feel like an outsider during that time in any shape or form or?
Oh, all the time, man. I was always an outsider. But what was nice about it was I realized that being an outsider was a huge advantage when I started getting into public policy over here because, we would go to the state capitol to lobby for more science funding, right? Yeah. And a lawmaker would start talking to these guys, and the science people don't have any of those soft skills. They don't have any ability to BS with these guys. And so they would, start spouting out data and stats and numbers, whatever. And then you could just watch these guys like glass over, like, oh yeah, well, thanks for coming, and we'll see you later, Yeah. And then they'd be like, oh, so what do you do? And I'm like, oh, well, I also coach basketball. Oh, well, all right. Well, what do you think about so-and-so and his stats? Oh, well, let me tell you, I think it's, and then, I realized I had a niche there. I probably should have been a used car salesman, come to think about it. I'd probably be way richer than I am today if I started earlier in that. But it's true. I'll be honest. And, and I realized I was like, man, I can really do some good here. And so that's what I've been kind of doing the last 5 years. I was National Aerospace Teacher of the Year. I ended up becoming an Albert Einstein Fellow. Went to D.C., worked for the Air Force for a couple years. Okay. And now I'm at ASU, and I'm doing basically STEM policy, working on trying to make my state a better place for, all the science teachers. And so, so those experiences definitely kind of molded who I am and what, where I'm at right now. And so now I'm working on my PhD. Nice. I got 1 year to go. So I'll be Dr. V next year. So,
okay. What are you studying?
STEM policy. So I'm working on basically, how do we, national level kind of stuff, like how do we make the country a better place, for STEM education? Because, a lot of people are like, oh, of course we need to have a STEM educated literate workforce, right? They just assume that, but then they don't realize that most states don't really do what they say they're going to do. And that's a problem. And so that's what I've been working on is like, how do we get these folks to start thinking like, hey man, there's a lot of STEM in plumbing, right? They don't think like that. They don't think like, they're thinking like you're a scientist in a lab coat, and that's not the way it's going to be anymore. The way it's going to be is like, real STEM is like, your auto mechanic who needs practically a PhD to work on a car, your plumber, your HVAC guy who's going to, that's all thermodynamics, right? And as things get more complicated, it's just getting harder. And so we got to train these future employees to be able to do all that stuff. And, a lot of states just aren't doing it. So that's kind of what I've been working on. Yeah. Interestingly enough, we just had the NCAA tournament here. March Madness was here in Phoenix.
Oh.
And did you know Mario Stowers? Did you know Mario at all? He might have been a little bit before you. Okay. So Mario Stowers was my point guard at Shape. And he was a really interesting story. So he comes to Shape and he screws up. And he messes up. His dad sends him away to like military school. And then he comes back and he walks in the gym. I'll never forget this. He walks in the gym. I haven't seen this kid in a year. He walks in the gym and he goes, "Mr. Vargas, I've reformed myself and I'm ready to win a championship and I'll do whatever it takes." And I look at him and I'm like, really? Like, what kid does that, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I'm serious. I'm going to do whatever it takes. We're going to win the title. We're going to bring it home." And I'm like,
yeah,
okay. And so sure enough, he does it. Like, he actually does it. He pulls it off. We win the championship. I mean, I swear to God, it should be a movie at some point in time, because the whole way the tournament went down that year, it was awesome. Anyway, long story short, he calls me up and he's like, "Coach Vargas, I'm coming to Phoenix." So I haven't seen him, in like, I don't know, 15 years or whatever. And so it was really cool. We went out and got Mexican food and caught up a couple months ago. And, he's Dr. Stowers.
Wow.
And it was really amazing listening to him talk, because he's just like, I do my qualitative, my quantitative, and all this, and I'm just like, here I am slogging through this right now, right? And coming to realize that this kid that I coached, 20 years ago, he is already, 5-10 years ahead of me when it comes to education. Like he's like so far advanced. I'm like, wow, man, that is amazing. So
exactly,
it was a really cool moment, realizing that, this guy who I taught is now in a position to teach me more than I know. And that was really special. That was really cool. So
yeah, it really affirms like the road you're on right now, right? Like you're trying to get more funding for the STEM program for the next generation, and here's an older generation like coming and being like, you made a difference in my life, and you're part of the reason why I am where I am, and you can continue to do that with other students, even though you're not a teacher anymore. You can do it through being an advocate, which is awesome to see and see how you've transitioned over the years. Did you ever think you would be on this road when you were a kid? Like when you were a kid, you're like, what were your dreams as a kid, and how have they changed to be where you are now?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I wanted to go into archaeology. I wanted to be Indiana Jones. I kept, I watch all the Indiana Jones movies, and I'm like, that's what archaeology is going to be like. That's going to be awesome, And then I took archaeology freshman year of college, and then I realized like what it really was. It was kneeling in dirt for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. This isn't really a social endeavor. And I quickly pivoted after that. But I think that's the thing that I really learned when I was younger, is that you don't have to be you don't have to be stuck in that mindset. You can do whatever you want to do, and you can do multiple things. Like I went down the basketball path, and I was like, I'm going to be a basketball coach. That's all I thought about for 15 years, and now it feels like a million years ago, and I'm doing something totally different. And honestly, like there's still other things I want to do that are totally different than this, that I'm working towards. Yeah. And I realize that, that's the beauty of life. You can do whatever you want. And so I'm going to do, what I want because I can. Right. And,
exactly.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people get pigeonholed into like, this is what I'm going to do. And it's like, you don't have to do that forever. You can do it for a couple of years and change what you're doing,
Yeah.
But
exactly. Hey guys, we are on air. I know, right? So cool to have this. but I interrupt this podcast to ask you guys to please follow us on all of our social media sites. We have Instagram, YouTube, the podcast on anywhere you get your podcast. And please share and like this episode and comment if this episode has affected you in any way. Because the more you comment, the more you like, the more you share, the more people we reach. And the more people we reach means the more the story of mental health and military brats change. So please go and follow us on all of these websites, and please share it with whoever and whomever you believe these stories will help change. Because I know that all of these stories thus far has already helped change my life. So again, I thank you guys for watching. And please like, share, comment, and follow us on all of our social media platforms. So you've lived a lot of different lives, it seems. Like, how, like, the military, and you said, like, he called you up and brought you over there. How is that life different for you? Like, when you were like, I'm going to be a head coach, and here you are coming into a completely different world that is outside of your norm. Like, how did you wrap your head around that? And how did you, like, go after it with all you wanted, other than just because, like, you wanted to be the head coach? Like, what other things helped you see that this was an opportunity for you to grow and you know, become better in your life and, you know, get out of your comfort zone, to be honest?
Well, you know, I didn't really have like a military background or anything like that. And I'll tell you a couple funny stories. One was when it was like my third day on the job coaching football. One of the assistant coaches was a full bird colonel. And I had no idea what rank was. Like, I had no idea at all. And you know, I totally understand now, 20 years later, 24 years later, that he just probably looked at me like, who the heck is this kid, right? Because you know, I arrived in Belgium, and I was like I was the youngest coach to ever win the championship. By the way, I was 23 years old when I got there. I was a baby. So I wasn't much older than my students. Like I only had 1 year teaching under my belt in Phoenix before I arrived. And we're at practice one day, and all the other assistant coaches, because, you know, even though I was the Dodds person, I had to be the head coach, right? And all these other assistants were like kind of high ranking dudes. And so I remember we're sitting there, and I go, "So, sir, what does that little bird thing mean on your lapel there?" Everything stops. Everything just absolutely stopped. And everyone just looked at me like, what did you just say? And I remember the assistant coach, who was a sergeant, he was like a sergeant major, literally spit his stuff out. Like, he literally, you know, all over the field. And I was like, what? You know, and they just looked at me like, who is this jackwagon sitting here on the 50-yard line with us?
Where did they get him from?
So that was a rude awakening, because, like, I mean, he was very nice. I tell you, he was very nice. He could have been a jerk to me, but he was very nice and was like, I mean, I'm a full bird colonel. And I'm like, oh, cool, you know?
Yeah.
I remember going to the mess hall for the first time. Coach Cap takes me to the mess hall. And I'm like, whoa, I'm in a mess hall. This is so cool. Like, I'd seen it on TV, right? I had no idea that, you know, it's like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to get like a whole breakfast for like $3. Like, this is the greatest deal ever, right? And the cook looks at me and he goes, hey, son, you want to eat in my mess hall? And I'm like, yeah, I sure do. And he's like, go get a haircut and come back. Because I have long hair. I used to have... And honestly, that was the week that I lost all my hair, because I've never grown it back since.
Wow.
So yeah, because I was like, that was one of the first moments when I was at Shape where I was like, oh, this is not the real world here. Like, I have to, like, you know, because I had long hair. I wore a bandana in college. Like, I looked like totally not the same. So I did. I went, I got a buzz cut, came back, and I literally never grew it back out again. Like that was like the last time I had long hair was that day, first week at Shape. And, and then after, and then I remember, 9/11 happens like, I don't know, like a couple weeks after that. So I was only going to be there for a year. And I remember being on the field and, all of a sudden the alarms go off and, it's like, and I'm like, what is going on here? And this sergeant guy looks at me and he's like this old gunny and he's like, God damn son of a bitch, bleep, beep, beep, beep. Somebody push the bleep, bleep, bleep button. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I'm thinking like Matthew Broderick, like War Games, like back in the day, right? I'm thinking like, what is happening? Like he's like, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. This is a real deal. And I'm like, oh my God, the bombs are going to drop. Am I going to like take a ship back because there won't be anything left of humanity? Like these are all the things going through my head as I'm running with the football team back to the locker room to get them on buses to get them home.
Yeah.
And I realized in that moment that I was like, man, this isn't like just this like, oh, I'm going to be a coach and this is going to be fun. Like this was like, oh, this is like real stuff,
Yeah.
And
when you came
after that,
it was all high ranking when you came. Like the only people who were at Shape were E7s and above. So like it was high ranking everything. So it was a different atmosphere at that time. I do remember that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember, the colonel joking around telling us like, he's the coffee boy. He's like, I got to get coffee for the generals. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like I have no context. Right.
Yeah.
But years later I realized like, whoa, man, these guys, cause a lot of those guys, especially some of the football coaches, like, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but some of them are like pretty high up in the Pentagon. Like they retired very up there, but I think, those experiences really made me appreciate and realize like I was going to stay 1 year. I was going to be like 1 year, go home, get my head coaching wings, whatever. And it fundamentally shifted my mindset to, I wanted to be a part of something bigger. And I felt like I was doing that. Like I felt like I was, contributing to the cause, so to speak. Yeah. And, I had these dads come into my office right after 9/11 because, everyone disappears, right? Everyone starts vanishing. Mm-hmm. So people were just like in the middle of the night getting orders and like, peace out. Right. Yeah. So these dads come to me, I remember there's two of them, and they're like, Coach Vargas, I'm going to be deployed and I'm gone and I don't know when I'm coming back. And so you watch after my boy, take care of my son, and I'll never forget that. I was like, I'm a 23-year-old kid. I'm like, oh yes, sir. And, the weight of that responsibility kind of never left. Like I realized like, what I'm doing here is really important because I'm looking after these people's kids that are, taking care of our country and, doing like, much bigger and bigger things, and so I took that very seriously throughout the rest of my career. And, while I was there, and I was very aware and cognizant that like, I gotta be a good steward of these people's kids while they're here, and so, and so that was, that definitely changed and shaped who I was. When I moved back to Arizona, living on a military installation for a decade, it's very different coming home. I mean, it took me like a whole year to readjust, it was like, oh, I can shop up until 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. Like, I can get food at midnight. Like what is going on? Like it was, but it definitely, it made me who I am. I definitely feel like it gave me a lot of responsibility. I feel like it definitely, I came back much more wiser and mature than anyone else my age when I came back, for sure. And a whole new appreciation for, what our country does outside of its borders. Cause, unless you're in there, like, you don't know, you have no idea, but you've lived there for a decade yourself. So you've seen it, right? You've seen like all the stuff that goes on, and I don't know, but, I think after living through an experience like that, like you and me have both had, I think it just makes you more worldly, and it just makes you kind of more, aware, but also enlightened is the only way I can really describe it.
It's true. It's true. What characteristics for you that stand out for you during that time that you felt developed while you were, from the time you're 23 until the time you left in Belgium, that you also carry over into what you're doing now and with the kids and your kids as well, like that you're trying to instill in them that was instilled in you at that time?
Yeah. I mean, I just, I feel like, that's a really good question, because there's so many ways to approach that. I feel like, responsibility is definitely a big thing. Like, I remember putting a lot of responsibility like on my players' shoulders, and I'd tell them, like, this is on you. Like, this is your job to get this done. I'm not going to do this. You're going to do this. You're the player. Get it done, get out there. I mean, I think about the things I probably did as an early coach that I could probably never do today.
It's true.
I remember the time. I remember the time that there's a couple of times where they broke curfew one night at Mannheim. I remember that. I remember the Mannheim trip. They broke curfew, and I made them run until they all just puked their guts out. And it was, I would be fired today if I did that,
Yes.
but I held them accountable. And I was like, you don't ever do that again, and we were tough, we were able to get those kids tough, and even like in the classroom setting too, like, I remember the level of homework being tougher. I remember the level of like projects being tougher, and, coming over here, like I was never able to demand those same types of bars from kids once I got back to the States. The kids in Europe could take it, they could take it and run with it and excel at it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really like that when I came back. And I thought that was always kind of interesting, like how, you couldn't push my American kids. I don't know, they're all American kids, but you couldn't push them nearly as hard and get the same results. It just didn't work like that. So I always think about that. That's one thing that I think about. So, but European kids had grit, man.
It's true. It's true. It's so weird because, like one of my friends, like he came back from the States, and like just a school difference when he came back to the States for a year and then came back to Belgium, like he was like, yo, this is completely different. Like we weren't learning this last year. Like, so he had to catch up, And so it does feel weird that we were learning different things that people in the States may not have been learning at the same time. And it's so weird to think that, the school systems all across, they're not all the same. And I just wonder why. Like, why are there different standards? Why are there not the same standards across the whole United States, It's really weird to me.
No, totally. I mean, I think one of my big wake-up calls when I came back to Arizona was, I remember Mr. Kovacs. Do you remember Mr. Kovacs at all? He was the physics teacher at Shape for many, many years. God, he was a great guy. He actually smuggled his wife out of East Germany in the back of a Fiat.
Wow.
A Fiat little car. Like his story is amazing. And he actually owned the huge chateau right off Shape. And he rebuilt it by hand. Like he bought it in the 70s or something crazy because he'd been there that long. And he he was a quirky old dude, but I remember, man, like the level of how, the level of he taught physics. I was just like, man, like just my jaw would drop when I walk into the room and his kids are like, oh yeah, we're gonna cheat and use calculus to solve this problem. Even though it's not a non-calculus class.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and you were just like, I mean, it was amazing. And then you come back to Arizona and it's like, you didn't see that stuff here anymore.
Yeah.
People were just doing the bare minimum. They weren't like, hey, let's go cheat and use calculus to like solve this, really hard physics problem.
Yeah.
They're just like, let's just not do the problem. Right. Let's just do the lowest common denominator to pass everybody. And it just always just kind of made me think like, man, why is this system this way and this system not, but to answer your question, it is very, the systems are all very different, because every state has its own way of doing things. I'm actually an expert in all of this because A, it's what I'm doing my PhD in, and B, like I'm kind of like a physics teacher expert to a certain extent. Like I know, like I've actually worked for the American Association of Physics Teachers, like in DC doing STEM policy. So like I'm on that level. And I can tell you that like, A, the numbers are low, much lower than they were even 10 years ago. Arizona is one of the worst states. We're down to 140 physics teachers left in the entire state. And, versus a state like Virginia, which is roughly the same size as Arizona, population wise, they have triple that amount. But even then, those numbers aren't very great for what they should be. And, and I think a lot of it is the fact that we just, we don't put the value on setting the bar high anymore. It's not set the bar high. It's just, however we can like eke out another year and not thinking long game, which is what I think we should be doing. But that's a whole other philosophy conversation that we probably don't have enough time for.
Hey, there's always time to come back and we can have it with more people. I mean, if you ever want to come back, I would love to have that conversation.
Yeah. No, I could bring some guests. You let me know. So
we will, because it's important. Our education is important, especially for the kids and, with science, even like with history, like history is getting spun in every single state to make that state sound good or to make certain people sound good instead of just telling the truth all across the board. So it's a conversation that needs to be had, and hopefully with having the conversation, it changes, the standard of education across the United States. So definitely. Okay. So last question.
Tell me.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh, that is a really difficult question. Man. So I'm set to graduate this upcoming summer, which I'm very excited about. So I'm going to get those letters, hopefully, which I'm pretty pumped about. I'm working on a project called the Arizona STEM Acceleration Project here in Arizona. Nice. It's the largest STEM accelerator that our state's ever undertaken. And basically what it is like this model. It's like, not to get too nerdy, but it's a framework for how to like take a large scale system and change it in a short amount of time. Okay. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm doing like systems thinking kind of things. And I'm trying to like take these ecosystems and tweak them in a way that I can get a lot of results very quickly, en masse is what I'm doing. I did get to go present to the National Academies of Sciences in November about it, which was very exciting because most science people never get that opportunity in their lifetime, which was pretty amazing. Nice. So I gave my speech and told them all about it, and And now it's turning into this model that other people across the country are using, which has been pretty cool, which I'm pretty excited about. Yeah. And so, my dream would be that in 5 years from now, there's a lot more regions and a lot more states start using this. Yeah. And I would be involved in some shape, form, or fashion, helping to, expedite it and accelerate it and do some of those things. So, that's kind of like my focus right now. My work right now has been to, prove efficacy of this model that I created here in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And basically what we did is we created an alliance / friendship with all these different groups, because, nothing happens in a silo, right? Everyone can't do anything on your own. The minute you think you can do anything on your own, forget it. Yeah. One of my biggest pieces of advice to anybody that wants to accomplish anything is you will get way more done when it's not yours. And so we've made every effort to make sure that none of this is mine. None of this is like my idea. None of this is our idea. This is just the idea. And we want that idea to be taken by others and taking that on. And I feel like once you release that ownership, sometimes you can really start the wildfire of really great things of change, right? Yeah. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to find a way to make STEM better across the country and allow others to, take this model and roll with it. And, so a lot of it's been working with lawmakers, working with business and industry folks, and giving them that space to hey, you get to be the champion. Will you be our champion? Will you mentor us, sponsor us, take us under your wing? And, would you do that for us? Yeah. And I think you'd be really surprised at how many people will say yes. Because I think that's one thing that a lot of folks don't really think about, is the power of that mentorship. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that I wouldn't get where I am today if I didn't have other people mentoring me. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your mentor is someone that's 10 years older than you either. Yeah. Some of my best mentors the last couple of years have been folks that are 10, 15 years younger than me. In fact, I think getting a younger mentor, especially when you're old and ugly like me, is even more benefit to you. One of my best mentors, she's 15 years younger than me, but she's like a whiz kid on tech and all these other things. Yeah. But being involved with people that have a different perception or different outlook of looking at the world. Yeah. I think those are the people you want to get in your circle, because that's what's going to help you grow. That's going to help you become better at what you're doing. Exactly. For years and years, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And until I got rid of that mindset and got to the point where I'm going to I'm going to seek out counsel and wisdom of others, and not think of oh, well, you're too young or you're too old or but this person's really good. They do a really good job. I want to learn as much as I can from them because I know they do good stuff. That's when things start clicking. Yeah.
Do you think with the program, and if things go right, you get the funding you need and everything, do you believe the next generation can really walk into adulthood and getting a job with better opportunities? Because like you said, technology is growing. You have somebody on your team who's a technology whiz, and she sees the trajectory it's going, and this next generation is going to have that education to do it. So do you believe that if everything goes to plan, they will have that better opportunity, that better step into their next chapter once they graduate high school?
I do. I have a lot of hope for the future, man. I wouldn't do this if I didn't think there was hope for the future, But I think it's up to us, to create those opportunities, because, the world is getting kind of crazy political right now. And in the last couple of years, especially the last dozen years, lots of things have been rolled back. And so, like in Arizona, for instance, 15 years ago, everyone had access to like physics, right?
Yeah.
Or upper level chemistry or AP. Like you just assume that you have this. Everybody has this. And we're not in that environment anymore. Now we have a lot of haves and have nots.
Wow.
And so, from my viewpoint, it's an equity issue, right? Because, if everyone has access equally to the same types of knowledge, right? That's a great equalizer. But what people don't realize is that as we shift to private, public charter, blah, 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 blah.
It's true.
Right? We are siloing those opportunities for people. And we really got to stop doing that. We really need to make sure that things are, inclusive and open for so everyone gets an opportunity to participate, because, there are huge parts here in Phoenix, like districts that are poor, right?
Yeah.
And so what gets cut first? It's the technology teacher, it's the physics teacher, it's the chemistry teacher. So what do? They're like, all right, well, we'll just do like 5 sections of bio. So bio 1, 2, 3, and 4, because you only need a bio certificate to teach any of those. And those kids don't really get anything great out of it. So those kids graduate. Sure, they had 4 years of science, all bio.
Yeah.
What happens then when they go take the test to get into like, a big time school?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're out of luck. Sorry. But yet the kid over here that had access to like, advanced physics and calculus and all these other things, they're going to ace all the standard tests because they had it and they're going to get in. So we have to start thinking about that, and like, how do we make it accessible for everybody so everyone can get into these kinds of things? Because, a lot of people don't realize like it has nothing to do with how hard you work. It has nothing to do with like, oh, I'm a real hard, It has everything to do with like, do you have the ability to take that course? Do you have access to it? And so that's one of my big things is I'm a big proponent of, trying to get that stuff into schools' hands so that it can help kids. So
that's awesome. That's amazing. Mr. Vargas, have you ever thought about creating like your own YouTube channel and like putting it up there and just allowing like the kids to do that? Hey, I vote. Everybody comment down below. Mr. Vargas, start a science YouTube channel.
You want to know what's kind of funny? Actually, for years, I actually had a Mr. Vargas YouTube channel when I was at Pinnacle, my old school. Yes, I had some awesome content on there too. And then one day the school district comes in and said, we're really sorry, but we're going to cut everybody's YouTube accounts.
Wow.
And they gave us 24 hours notice. So I only was able to save 6 videos because you got to, this is like, I don't know, 8 years ago or 7 years ago where you took like 15 minutes to upload a stupid video, right?
Yeah.
But I lost everything else.
Oh, man.
I vote bring it back. Bummer.
Bring it back. I vote bring it back. Kids need Mr. Vargas, man. They need you. But it's awesome to see what you're doing and how you're advocating them on the other side, and definitely making sure the next generation has what they need to be successful in life. And I'm personally, I thank you because, the next generation, I'll be a little older and I would like them to know what they're doing when they're doing stuff. So I definitely appreciate it. And I'm sure they will too, to be able to walk into this next chapter and feel confident in what they're walking into. So definitely thank you for what you're doing right now.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Vargas, thank you for being on. It's been a pleasure, and it's awesome to reconnect with you. Hopefully we can do that other podcast episode and have other people on. I would love to do that. So come back anytime.
Yeah, let me know for sure. Definitely.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. There are a ton more tea time episodes as well as stories that are going to be shared on this podcast to come. So please like and subscribe or follow down below. And I will see you all next Military Brat Monday Thank you guys for tuning in, and I am so excited to continue this journey with all of you.